Hello everyone, my name is Rose Romandi and welcome back to the Unending Grace. In the previous video, we talked about how grace becomes our identity. So when we were under the law, we thought we are what we do. But when you come to the grace of God, you realize that you are what you are because of the grace of God, because what God did. So you are what you are because of He did what He did for you. And we must come to this shift of perspective in our understanding. This shift of identity shift. We have to enter and we stop seeing ourselves according to the weaknesses and struggles that we have, and then we lift up our eyes. We must lift up our eyes and look unto Him and see and realize what He did for us. Okay, so in previous video we realized that grace is not receiving what you don't deserve. Grace is actually you're receiving because you do deserve it, because you are of one with Him. So if you haven't watched that video, I want to encourage you to go and watch the previous video on this series. But now today in this video, we're gonna take a look at the grace and understand that how are we supposed to receive the grace, and how do we what happens when we receive the grace, and why is it so important for us to understand that grace is what we need in this Christian life. Grace is what we is our identity. And let me put it this way. We have turned grace to the law because of the carnal mind tries to identify and define everything according to the fleshly understanding. And that's why when it comes to grace, we are so concerned about what we did rather than who He is and what He did. So let me put it this way. If you take a look at, this is a good example here. So in Genesis, when God told Adam and Eve, do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because if you eat it, you will die. Immediately, you and I think that God gave the law that they were supposed to keep it. And then they go around, they didn't keep it, they hide themselves. Now, here's the thing. The reason we think God gave a law to Adam and Eve in Genesis, it's because we are still looking at ourselves and thinking what we're supposed to do. Let me give an example. So we realize that we have to change our perspective. When a father or a mother, or a father, let's say father because God is a father in this context that they are talking here. So when a father tells his son that don't do this, is it because the son is not supposed to do things, or it's because God or this father has the love for the son, has a purpose, has a destiny, has a grace and love in his heart for him, and that's why he's not supposed to do this, because that's not who he is. Through this teaching, the son is supposed to come to a place of realizing, the reason my father told me not to do this, it's because it is not who I am. It's because this is not who I am. So going back to Genesis chapter 3, when God said to Adam that don't eat this, if you're still looking at it as a law, you haven't seen the heart of the Father in this picture. So now when He said, don't eat from the tree of life because it's not who you are. Take a look at the heart of the Father or God behind this and understand that, this is the grace. Everything that God is doing for you, saying to you, it's because it's actually revealing your identity. This is not who you are, so don't do it. This is who you are. That's why you're supposed to live this way. So this brings us to Romans chapter 5. Romans chapter 5, look at verse 17 in Romans chapter 5. It says, for if by one man's offense death reigned through the one, much more those who have received the abundance of grace and of the gift of righteousness, they will reign in life through the one, Jesus Christ. So did you see? Did you pay attention? It says those who have received the abundance of grace and the gift of righteousness. So our focus for this video is the grace part. So those who have received the grace, they shall reign in life. Okay, did you see? There is one person who, through this person, grace came to the world, but now grace must be received. Okay, so God did. We just read last week in our video that through the by the grace of God, he tasted death for everyone. Romans 2:9. Grace of God, he tasted death for everyone. Sorry, Hebrews chapter 2, verse 9. So here says, therefore, the grace came, but it must be received. So those who have received not the grace, but the abundance of grace, they shall reign in life. So now, let me just share my screen here with you. Therefore, let's break it down here. What do we see? We see someone who is called, let's say, Jesus, right? So the one who died for us, so, or the Christ. So, okay, Jesus, okay. What is he doing? He gives what? Grace. Okay, but there is another one here. He now needs to receive grace. Okay, it says, all right, so these people, they received the grace that came through this person called Jesus Christ. What happens to these people? Something is happening. So the whole purpose of this grace for this person is to reign in life. So I'm going to put reign because I don't have a space here. So do you see? So the whole purpose is to reign. Okay. In the previous video, we saw that grace came because he suffered for everyone. So I'm going to put the cross here. Okay, just to understand that the cross is the work of God. It's where God works in man to release something in the life of man. So now, therefore, the whole purpose, so let's take a look at the beginning and the end of this story. The whole purpose, Jesus died on the cross, was that eventually somebody receives it and somebody reigns. So the whole purpose of Jesus dying on the cross is that somebody would reign in life. Did you just see? There is a process in between, something happens in between, but if we just remove those and see the beginning and the end, we realize that, okay, this person, Jesus, died on the cross so that through the process, through whatever that he did on the cross, some people reign in life. So now, therefore, if this person, and by the way, this is gospel in a nutshell. What Jesus did on the cross, it wasn't that you one day have a path to heaven and die and skip hell. It wasn't that. It says so that they might reign in life. Okay? So keep that in mind, and we are going to take a look at a couple of scriptures to realize that reigning in life is not going to be in heaven when you die and go there. It's actually on earth, here and now. All right? So this is the gospel. Now, here's the thing. If somebody is reigning, who is this person then? Okay? Who reigns? Hopefully you are answering what I am writing here. A king. So therefore, the grace makes you a king. All right? So did you just see? The grace just gave you an identity. When the moment you receive the grace, all of a sudden you realize, oh my goodness, I am a king then, because now this grace is what I have in my position, or what is I have, or who I am, to be able to reign in life. Because kings are the ones that are actually reigning. So therefore, those who received abundance of grace, they become kings. And if they become kings, they might reign through, it says, Jesus Christ. So let's put it this way, through grace. Okay? So therefore, if we have the king here, I'm going to take this a little smaller. All right. So now, if this king, we have a king, this king is the grace king, or king of grace. He must have a kingdom. You know what? Let me, because I don't have much room here. So this king is a king of grace, and he has a kingdom. Therefore, the kingdom of this king is also grace. So did you just see? We have a king, we have a kingdom, and they both are based of the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ. Okay, so therefore, if God is a king, or if Jesus is a king, and he's giving grace to everyone, and the reigning is because you receive the grace, and the reigning is through the grace, and the grace of God is that he died for everyone. So you can see that every time that God comes by his kingdom to bring his kingdom, he's bringing his own grace. And what happens when the grace comes? Some people are receiving it and start reigning in life. And then they start experiencing life and not death. Now, let me show you a couple of more verses here. Look at verse 21 in Romans chapter 5. It says, so that as sin reigned in death, even so grace might reign through righteousness to eternal life in Jesus Christ. So therefore, now let's go to Revelation chapter 5. So from Romans chapter 5 to Revelation chapter 5. Okay. Now, take a look here. Look at verse 9. There are some group of people that they are singing a new song. And when you sing a song, that means it's a happy time. All right? So now, here verse 9 says, and they sang a new song, saying, you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals. For you were slain, and you have redeemed us to God by your blood. Okay? Out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation. So do you see the blood here is referring to the crucifixion or death of Jesus? And keep in mind, Romans chapter 9 to verse 9 told us, grace of God is that he tasted death for everyone. So every time you see the blood, you must see the grace of God, the work of the cross. And every time you see the grace, you must see the king. Look at verse 10. It says, and have made us, look at this, and have made us kings and priests to our God. Okay. Have made us kings and priests to our God, and we shall reign on earth. Wonderful. So did you see? There is a king, therefore. Who are the kings? Those who receive the grace. What are their kingdom? The kingdom of their Father that is on base of grace. And what are they doing? They are actually reigning where? On earth. Did you just see what happened? The reason Jesus died on the cross is that somebody would reign on earth. Okay, some of you might ask, okay, what does it mean to reign on earth? Let's keep it simple and not really complicated. Okay, every time that let me put it this way. If you are not living, manifesting the glory, the fullness of life of God on earth, that's when you need the reigning. So let's put it this way. Okay, so it's when you're supposed to step into your identity and be victorious all the time. So now, that's the story of the gospel. So if Jesus died on the cross so that somebody receives that and somebody becomes a king and reigns in a kingdom, therefore, this person needs to have a throne. Okay, and because a king needs a throne, right? So otherwise, therefore, you're not a king and you don't sit on a throne and you can't really bring the kingdom down. So therefore, let me take you this. Look at verse, we are in Revelation chapter 3. Let's go to Revelation chapter 3. And Jesus is writing to this verse, to this church. And he's telling this church that you need to overcome to sit on the throne. Look at verse 21 in Revelation chapter 3. It says, to him who overcomes, I will grant to sit with me on my throne as I overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne. So did you see? So the Father is a king, and Jesus said, I overcame and I sat down on the throne. So that means Jesus is a king. But the story doesn't stop there. It says, okay, you saw me overcome and sit down on the throne as a king. Now is your time to actually transition to this and do exactly what I did, to sit on the throne. So that means the church is supposed to be a king. If you sit on the throne, you are a king. But we just looked at the verses, okay? The kings are those who received the grace. Look at the picture here, the grace. Okay, so what is the overcoming them? What is the one of the things that the church is supposed to overcome? We don't have even to read the rest of the verses. We can make a conclusion. If Jesus says, overcome and sit on the throne, and Romans chapter 6 said, those who have received grace, they sit on the throne basically as a king to reign in life. Therefore, the overcoming that Jesus is talking here is actually they're supposed to overcome something and receive the grace. Okay? So their overcoming is to receive grace. Receive grace, receive grace, receive grace. So do you see? Receiving grace is one of the things that we must overcome in the church. And no wonder that there is still so much confusion and so much debate around the subject of grace and the law. And let me tell you this, the maturity, let me put it this way, as long as the son of the king is a baby, is a child, and is not mature, even though the throne is his inheritance, even the throne is what he's going to sit on, but not yet. Because the son is immature. But the moment the son of a king is mature enough to take over the king from the father, that's when he sits on the throne. So grace is what matures us to sonship. Grace moves us from a place that you are childish into a place of sitting on the throne. So now, here's the thing. Therefore, the church here is supposed to grow into grace. They're supposed to overcome the law or whatever and receive the grace. So the overcoming that Jesus is talking to this church is receive the grace. Why? Because the moment you receive the grace, you are reigning and you're sitting on the throne. So let me put it this way in the short bracket here. Chapter 20 of the book of Revelation, there are some people that are sitting on the throne. It's not Jesus, are the saints who have followed Jesus. And that means they actually overcame, they received the grace, and they are reigning in life. So you see them on the throne reigning in life. But now, let me show you this. Let's go to Hebrews chapter, if I want to go to Revelation chapter 2, and we're gonna be here for a long time. But now let's go to Hebrews chapter 4. So we are going to see here that the throne is the throne of grace, and then I'm going to take a few minutes to see how can we really receive the grace. Now look at look at chapter 4 in Hebrews, and now look at verse 16 first. It says, "Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace." Okay, that's interesting, right? So we have the King of grace, we have the kingdom of grace, and now we have the throne of grace. And by now, after all these videos and teachings we had on grace, we need to understand that grace is the work of God in man's life. Okay, that brings life to man and not death. So if it's the King of grace and the kingdom of grace and the throne of grace, that means God is in the business of producing life for man. All right, so now here says, "Let us come boldly to the throne of grace, that we may obtain." The word obtain here is the word receive. "That we may receive grace and find grace to help in the time of need." Okay, so hold on. Here says, first of all, there is a time of need. Okay, so now let me show my screen here, because we all been in this time of need. All right, so now look at this. It says there is a time of need. So you need help. What do you need? You need help. Okay, but it says your help comes to you from the throne of grace. Therefore, what you need to do, if you need help, you need to come and actually receive what? Grace. Okay, we just talked about it. If you receive grace, okay, how are you supposed to receive grace? This grace that we are talking here is actually in a throne. So do you see? If you come to the throne of grace to receive grace, that means the grace is sitting on the throne. Because the grace is not a thing. Grace is a person. Okay, so this grace is sitting on the throne. So it says, okay, you are in the time of need. You need to come and receive the grace from the throne, because the grace is in the throne. So what does that mean? Why is it saying the throne? Because the throne is the symbolic of power, authority. You are in the time of need. You need to overcome. You need the power. Grace is actually your power. But now, the interesting part is, it says you receive grace. Did you just see? We read it in Romans chapter 5. Those who receive grace, they become kings to reign in life. Okay, it says, guys, you are in the time of need. You must come to the throne of grace. Then you receive the grace. Then you realize, okay, I can reign, and that means you realize I can ascend to the throne, and I can sit on the throne, and I can reign. Did you just see? It's not that you wait so that God may reign in your life. God did what he was supposed to do. Those who are still childish, not mature, are waiting for God to reign in their life. But now the gospel, as we just talked about it here, the gospel is not that you wait until God comes and reign in your life. The gospel is that some people may receive the finished work of God, the grace of God, so that they reign through Jesus Christ. So did you see? We just talked about it, that the purpose that Jesus came, it was that some people may reign here. That's the purpose. It's not that he came that he might reign in your life. No, he came that you reign in life through Jesus Christ, because you received this grace. So therefore, it says we have the throne of grace. So you came to the throne of grace. Therefore, it says, receive this throne of grace. Now, I want to show you a couple of verses before I finish this. Look at verse before that. It says, for we do not have a high priest. Where are we? Hebrews 4:15. We do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weakness, but was in all things tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us come and receive in the time of need. The time of need is a time of weakness, is a time of temptation. It's when he was tempted, he was weak, he didn't sin. What did he do? He overcame and he sat on the throne. Now he says, there is a time for you. You must receive the grace of God. Okay? So now let me show you this so that we realize that honestly, receiving the grace is not hard. Something just needs to happen in you. And 1 Peter tells us what really is going to happen, or how can we receive this grace. Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 1 and look at verse 13. This is the second important verse for me for understanding of the grace. Okay, so verse 13 says, and hopefully you just see it today and you realize that again, it's not something that you can do to receive grace. There's one thing that must happen to you to receive grace. Look at verse 13. Therefore, gird up the loins of your mind, be sober, and rest your hope fully upon the grace that is to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Do you see? Oh, it says, at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Did you just see that? At the revelation of Jesus Christ, the grace is brought to you. Let's read it again. The grace that is to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. You know what that means? That means, guys, the moment you have the revelation of Jesus Christ, it's like grace, like a food is served to you. And all you need to do is take it and eat it, basically. Okay? You can never, ever find a child that says, how am I supposed to eat? When the food is in front of the child. The baby's born, just got to this world, they know how to eat it. It's part of our instinct. We know how to eat as long as the food is there. So here it says, the grace is brought to you, served to you in a platter, let's say, as soon as you have the revelation of Jesus Christ. So it's not a matter of how am I supposed to eat this grace or eat this food or receive this grace. It's a matter of is the grace being brought to you because you had the revelation? Do you have the revelation of Jesus Christ? And the word revelation here is exactly the same word that is used in the book of Revelation, the revelation of Jesus Christ. So therefore, the book of Revelation of Jesus Christ, the moment you read it, grace is being brought to you. So every verses in the book of Revelation must bring a grace to you. And then when you receive the grace, then you can reign on earth and you become the king. That's why the book of Revelation has nothing to do with end times, has everything to do with you receiving the grace of God because you had the revelation of Jesus Christ. So now, here's the thing. How are we receiving the grace? In this video, we talked about how are we receiving the grace when you have the revelation of Jesus Christ. When Jesus Christ is unveiled and revealed in front of your eyes, in your understanding, in your heart. That's what makes us mature and grow into it. What happens when the grace is brought to us? Then we receive it, then we can live it in the time that we need it. It's just that maturity that every single one of us are stepping into it, because we are consuming, eating, and receiving this grace. Not because I am doing something, is because He has done something that I must know. Because if He did it, He knew something about me that I don't know about myself. And this is called the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for being with me, and I will see you in the next teaching.